Well, the most important thing that everyone needs to know is that while you were sleeping last night, the Cambridge Dictionary changed the definition of what is a woman. So now, henceforward, according to the great and the good at the Cambridge Dictionary, a woman is an adult who lives and identifies as a female, though they they may not have
May have been.
may have been said to have been a different sex at birth. You think we're joking, don't you? You think we're having it on. This is not a mem. This is real. So they, and I love the fact that they changed the pronoun from her to they. So that's the Cambridge. So the corruption of language has really reached an absolute pinnacle here.
And as you try and read it, you are demonstrating the problems, because you're looking at it and saying this can't be real. So you're having trouble reading it, and then the words themselves are causing you trouble. This is applied psychology. It's particularly vicious. Carry on through.
Yeah, and I'm just going to add, anybody who's not standing up and protesting this right now, and any politician that's not calling this out, even on the floor of the House of Commons, you really have a lot to answer for, because this is just ridiculous. And look at this here. So the woke definition of woman as the identity puts women and girls at risk. So this is editor-in-chief there, the Post Millennial, Libby Emmons interview here with Jack Posobiec. She's made the important point here. What is this really about? This is because feminists have been coerced into believing this nonsensical lie. Liberal feminists have been totally bludgeoned by their own compassion and coerced into stating that men can be women and that men can be lesbians, okay? So how far does this go? I'll tell you how far it goes. If you want to go to the cutting edge of this issue, go to Norway. Look at the Nordic model. Here's Scandinavia. A Norwegian actress here faces a 3-year prison sentence for saying that men cannot be lesbians. This is one of the harshest pieces of legislation in the world right now with regards to misgendering or using the wrong pronouns or denying that trans women are actually women. You can go to prison in Norway. I kid you not, and they are arresting people. People have been canceled. This is beyond canceling. They're actually wanting to throw people in prison for it. So this is a really brutal regime in Norway, and I dare say, how long till this spreads through Europe and maybe here?
If we allow it. So Alex, very quickly, can you give us a glimpse of good news in this direction?
I can. First, I'll just plug two interviews, an interview and a blog, also on the front page. There's a glut of good material. They will help answer what Patrick has just raised. One is look to Scotland as a mirror of what's happening in Norway. So David Scott has interviewed Richard Lucas of the Scottish Family Party, talking about the legislative coercion of people in matters of sexuality. Some great insights there. And also in the comment section near the base of the homepage, near the bottom, there is an excellent German author, Johannes Eisleben, writing about the crisis of Western political systems, and whether it's war in Ukraine or fear of viruses or sexual nonsense in our heads, he describes very well why this chaos is necessary for those in charge of us. But here we are. This is a piece from The Guardian, together with some response from, I have to say, a Cambridge graduate like myself, predating the androgynous dictionary era. We spoke proper English at Cambridge in our day, but here we are. The Guardian is signalling a change. So actually it's The Observer, because Tonje Gjevjon is the chief leader writer for The Guardian's allied Sunday title, The Observer, the oldest English-speaking Sunday paper, actually. And Tonje Gjevjon of The Observer, online branded as The Guardian, says that Nicola Sturgeon, I nearly said Mrs., very bad of me, Ms. Sturgeon must take heed of changing views on the treatment of gender dysphoria. So here we are. Here's very quickly interspersed with quotations from the article, my Cambridge friend's response here. So instead of reading verbatim, it's look at Katie Dolatowski, a Scottish male sex offender who assaulted 2 very young girls and then assumed the identity of a woman. And the Cambridge responder says, oh, so we must pass over in silence the case of male rapists who've already been able to secure transfer to women's prisons. And I see Dolatowski is still being called a she. So the very mention, he says, of the Dolatowski case is a momentous shift. The very mention that there might be the slightest smidgen of a hint of a problem with men in women's prisons or refugees was previously bigotry of the highest order. And those who mentioned it were unpeopled as trans exclusionary radical feminists or TERFs. Another concern, says Sonia Soda, is that children could change their legal sex 16 and above. And we read here about mermaids and other campaigning charities. But the Cambridge reviewer of this, that's from the article as well. The Cambridge reviewer responding to this says, before this paragraph was included in the Observer recently, it was a shortcut to cancellation to mention such things, and it might even have the police on your door for transphobia. So there is a shift here. Instead of reading what's on the screen here, I'll summarize. The idea is that public authorities are now being told through the leader writers like Sonia Soda, you silly people, you shouldn't just take people's word for it that they now feel that they're a woman. You should have protected other women. There's a case in Essex University in which this was upheld. You don't just say, oh, okay, you feel like a woman, so go to the women's toilets. No, you should protect the, dare I say, real women. By actually saying, no, first of all, you have to get a legal declaration of this. This argument is now being trotted out in the bien-pensant rags like the Observer. So my Cambridge friend says, what does this indicate? It looks as if the party, in the Orwellian sense, has declared that collectivization may possibly have some problems, or that Deng Xiaoping was not altogether a filthy capitalist roader. Have they recognized that the female electorate has simply had enough of the trans agenda and that they must back off a bit? Well, seeing how much fight there is in the feminists of the old kind, I think that's a fair assessment. And if this is the blowing of the shofar on the trans movement, so that those who now know will return to base and shut down their operations, then what is next? What is the next agenda? A very good question there in closing.
It is, Alex. Thank you very much for that. And I think the proportion of this material that comes into the UK Column News shows us the perilous position we're in as this attack on our minds takes place. We've run out of time for the news. Just let's end with some black humour, really, about life around us. What have you got?
Yes, and I've just shut down my slide advancing app, so you'll have to go through these while I speak to them. So first meme is old Dr. Fauci, I am the science. He actually did say that, by the way. New Dr. Fauci on deposition before Congress says, I don't recall, it doesn't ring a bell, I didn't understand and I can't remember, while sucking his glasses frame. On to the next one. There we are, just a couple of examples of the fact checkers not checking the facts. They used to say there's no evidence for mRNA vaccines causing blood clots. That's been revised. They used to say there's no link found so far between menstrual disorders and COVID vaccines, according to the EU. Now they're saying the EU regulator recommends adding heavy periods to the side effects of the shots. Finally, Reuters fact checkers used to say that the US Centers for Disease Control saw no link between heart inflammation and COVID vaccines. Now they say the US FDA is adding warnings about a rare heart inflammation to Pfizer and Moderna COVID vaccines.
Pretty
the next one, I think. Yep.
Okay.
Europe's loud rule-making unvaccinated minority are falling out of society, says CNN. That's a picture of European plebs who aren't allowed to object. But if you tap that once more, you will see that in China, we've covered this a bit before, they are utter heroes. So CNN's editorializing in China is at the heart of China's protests against zero COVID. Young people cry for freedom. My final and finally is from the Northwest Arkansas Democrat, the kind of redneck title that the Europeans love to snigger at. And here is a big fat man labeled European Union, perhaps with his rule of law brief behind him, talking to a starving third world baby and saying, well, we know there's a critical food shortage, so we're closing 3,000 farms in the Netherlands to cut carbon emissions. It's actually for nitrous oxide emissions, meaning some of you folks will have to hurry up and die to save the planet. And if you tap that once more, the people who tweeted that said, this is a Dutch tweeter saying the minister who brought this in the Netherlands, Caroline van der Plas, the European Parliament, members of the Dutch National Parliament, many people worldwide will die because you are expropriating at least 3,000 Dutch farms. I support the farmers.
Okay, Alex, thank you very much for that. That brings us to the end of today's news. Patrick, thank you for joining me. A big thank you to Mike Robinson, who stayed the course to make this news today possible. Unfortunately, we aren't able to give you an extra time today. We hope normal service will be resumed on Monday, so please join us then. And we'll end by saying once again a really big thank you to everybody, whether you're in UK or worldwide, who's supporting UK Column, because we can only do what we do with your support and help. Thank you for joining us today. Bye-bye.